Today I'm going to share with you 20 vegetables that you can still plant in June. Now, don't let these monthly planting videos make you feel down or discouraged if you haven't started planting yet. It's not too late. June doesn't mean you've missed the boat. In fact, some of summer's best veggies are just getting started. These are all veggies that you can easily direct seed in your garden beds right now, are quick and easy to grow veggies that will give you plenty of vegetables to harvest this summer. First category you can easily direct seed in June are what I call the June heavy hitters. The first one being squash. Now here we've got one of the round zucchini squash plants, which is actually one of my very favorite zucchinis because number one, it's round, which is kind of a different size for a zucchini. Because it's round, it's super tender. And this was direct seeded maybe about 4 weeks ago. Look how big the plant is already. And it's already getting little baby flowers and baby zucchini. So definitely get your squash planted now. Super easy to plant. I've got the seeds in my squash seed collection. You do want a pretty good space for round zucchini or other kinds of squash, maybe a 2-foot size space. Or you can trellis them up a tomato cage trellis if you've got a small space and you really want to manage the space that you're growing in. There's so many different kinds of squash you can grow. Come on over here to the red planter area and I'll show you where I actually transplanted some little seedlings maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. And the crazy thing is you're actually at an advantage if you direct seed now because often they grow quicker in the warm weather and they actually catch up to the transplants. Now these you can see are much smaller than the plant I direct seeded. They were started inside, planted outdoors, and they're kind of taking a little bit of time to take off. We've got some butternut and spaghetti squash, some of the scallop squash, which is good for smaller spaces. And then over here, I believe these are also maybe some spaghetti squash and acorn squash. So squash is the perfect vegetable to direct seed this month. Make sure I stay in your feed by clicking the like button and subscribing. Now, back over to the Smart Pots planter. And by the way, you can grow squash in containers. You want at least a 10-gallon container for a large size squash like a zucchini. You could push it and grow in a 5-gallon Smart Pots for like a scallop squash, but I personally would definitely grow them up a trellis to save the space. Squash also works great kind of spilling over the sides of the raised bed. And now's a great time just to pop your seeds in. You may even want to plant seeds for your squash, beans, and cucumbers every couple of weeks, just so you can kind of spread your harvest out over the summertime. These will germinate quickly in warm weather and just start to spill over this raised bed, look really pretty, and be a good solution to save some space as well. The other heavy hitter in June that I love to plant are cucumbers. And if you missed our cucumber video last week, you got to go back and watch it for lots of tips to grow tons of cucumbers this season. These are my favorite, the Diva cucumber. And just since we shot our video, there have been a ton of little baby cucumbers that have popped out. You can see the flowers are opening. This is what's called a parthenocopic type of cucumber. Only female flowers, and they don't need pollination in order to produce fruit. So definitely a sure producer, and these are in my cucumber seed collection. Oh, and by the way, all my seed collections are 50% off for 1 more week with the code GROW50 over on our website. So definitely get your Divas planted. You can see how easy cucumbers are to direct seed, so you're not behind at all. Just poke them in a hole near a trellis, about a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch deep, cover them up, and in warm temperatures between 70 and 80 degrees, these are going to be germinating in about 3 to 5 days, and you'll be harvesting them in about 6 to 8 weeks, so plenty of time. Another one of my favorite varieties of cucumbers is the Armenian cucumber. These are particularly fast growing. It's a really fun cucumber to grow because it grows super long. It's called like the yard-long cucumber or something like that. It's a smaller, thinner cucumber, but so tender, doesn't get bitter, and those are also in my cucumber seed collection, one of my very favorite varieties to grow. So cucumbers are fun because you can plant them up a trellis, plant them in a raised bed, which I have over here. And by the way, speaking of being behind, this is that raised bed that I am super behind on. I mean, look what a horrible mess this is. It's full of weeds. I've been so busy on other areas of the garden, just haven't gotten to this yet. But you know what? It's not a race. So if you're feeling behind, I'm totally right there with you. I've got some Divas planted out here along the back. Haven't got around to trellising them yet. But this also leads me to my third heavy hitter in June, which are beans. Now, usually I have tons of beans going by now, but again, I'm behind on that. this is what I plan on clearing out and planting some beans. So there's lots of wonderful beans you can plant from my bean seed collection. In this raised bed, I am going to plant some bush beans, the Royal Red Burgundy, the Slenderettes, and also some edamame beans, which are kind of a fun variety of bean to grow. You can roast them and salt them. They're super delicious and very nutritious. But don't forget the pole beans. If you have a tall area, you definitely want to plant the pole or runner beans, which I have some going over here on this beautiful trellis, and they are just starting to flower. One of my favorite types of beans are the scarlet runner beans, and you guys have got to see these seeds. They are so pretty. So if you're a seed addict, you definitely want to grab these. They're absolutely beautiful. Purplish, kind of blackish seed. And these are one of the fastest growing seeds. You definitely need a tall trellis for this. So I've got them planted here against my 7-foot arch trellis. Look at the beautiful flowers that are just starting to come out. So if you want to attract pollinators and bees to your garden, plant these. They flock to the red flowers and they produce the most beautiful, tender beans you've ever seen. Pick them young, because that's when they're the best flavor. They grow super fast. So once they get oversized, they get very stringy, but you can still grow them for the beans. So you have dried beans for your salads or for your refried beans. They're absolutely one of my favorites. And we also have them at the top of the hill on the archway that leads down to the garden. I like to plant them all over the place. Now, another really good pole bean, let me bring you over here and show you by the fountain planter, are the rattlesnake beans, a really fun bean to grow. And these actually just grew back from last year, crazy enough. When I harvested the beans, I let some dry on the pod and then just put some of the bean pods right here in the soil. And they're kind of sprawling. I haven't got them trellised yet, but actually a little strategy I'm going to use, and this helps you save space in your garden, is that once this sunflower grows, this is actually a giant sunflower that reseeds year after year, this stalk will literally have about a 2 or 3 inch diameter. It will provide a really nice trellis for the beans to grow. So we'll see how that works out to trellis these beans after the fact once the sunflower starts to grow. So all kinds of beautiful different beans you can grow. I suggest that you plant some of each variety. The bush beans, the pole beans, and the runner beans, depending on the space that you have. They're definitely one of the June heavy hitters. Easy to direct seed this month. The last vegetable in this heavy hitter category is okra. Now, okra is one of those vegetables. If you've got a super hot garden, you've got to plant okra. It is a heat lover and it grows fast. Now, okra, in my opinion, is not the best tasting vegetable, but a lot of people absolutely love it. And this is the red burgundy okra from my spring garden seed collection. So you can see how kind of cool looking these seeds are. They're kind of like a little pod. So you can soak them in water overnight if you want to for quicker germination. But honestly, you guys, they pop up fast in warm weather. These are all warm weather loving vegetables. And this one has absolutely gorgeous red leaves. And even though I'm not fond of the okra itself, I always plant it. It's a gorgeous tropical plant, tropical looking plant with beautiful flowers. And the okra grows very, very fast. If you miss a day with okra, your pods will literally grow about 2 to 3 inches in one day. So pick them when they're young for the best flavor. And a lot of people like them stir-fried or just eaten raw right out in the garden. The next category of vegetables to direct seed in June is a heat-loving salad station, because the heat is coming this month, I guarantee it. And you want to get those heat-loving greens growing. Super easy to direct seed vegetables like kale, one of the super greens. I mean, look at this gorgeous red Russian kale, you guys. These leaves are absolutely amazing. They make great wraps. Now, what I do for kale, because a lot of people don't like the tough stems, is I pick the outer leaves of the plant, which keeps brand new, fresh growth coming, and then just strip out this tough stem like this. It's super easy. You can take this out and compost it or feed it to your chickens, and then break the kale into small pieces. Come on over here, Jerry, to the potting bench, and I'll show people how to do this. So imagine you have your salad bowl here. Break it into small pieces. Add just a dab of olive oil in there, and get in and massage your leaves. I guarantee it makes the leaves so much tender for eating, and it tastes really good too. So here we can even eat salad right out of the Smart Pots raised bed. We've got our beautiful kale, so many gorgeous varieties you can grow. Our chard, which again, you can easily direct seed, harvest the outer leaves, or even like this one, that's starting to get kind of a woody stem because it's starting to bolt, don't pull out the plant. Just cut it off at the base, and in about a week or so, you'll have fresh, new, baby, tender leaves coming out of the base. So kale and chard, two of my favorite heat-loving greens. But don't stop there. Plant yourself some mustard greens. Now, technically, they are a cool weather green, but they do last a lot longer in the heat. One of my favorites is this beautiful giant red mustard green. Really living up to his name here. It's giant and it's red, a little bit on the zippy side. So you can see where we've been harvesting here, a beautiful green, one of the faster growing ones. So great to direct seed now in June. Now under here, I've got some arugula. Not a super heat tolerant plant, but if you plant it in the shade, like the shade of this squash here, you can see we've been harvesting off this for months. It will keep growing through the summer heat, or at least until it gets about 85 degrees and then starts to bolt and go to flower. Now over in the other Smart Pot urban raised bed, and by the way, if you're looking for a super easy raised bed to grow in, this 2x4 is very easy to pop up and you've got your instant garden. So no more feeling behind, okay? So here we've got another variety of mustard green, definitely one of my favorites. This is so pretty. It's called Scarlet Frills Mustard Green. Not only is it an absolutely gorgeous plant, but it's a very ornamental plant as well. So if you have a spot you kind of want to fill in the gaps, plant this. It'll pop up in warm weather, literally in about 3 to 5 days. And you can plant it densely like I have here. And then you can harvest them as they're young for baby greens. You can see where I've kind of taken chunks out of this for harvesting. But look how they're growing back. Got tiny little baby greens in here. The larger greens over on this side, which they were all planted at the same time. You can go in and cut them right at the stem to thin out little strips of the greens. But it's a great strategy either to plant one half now and another half of the bed in about 2 weeks to kind of spread your harvest out. So here I've got this great heat-loving salad station, and this isn't really part of June must plant, but you could pop in some little sun gold cherry tomatoes, super fast grower. So I've got my toppings right here for my salad station, along with my cucumbers I can slice up and harvest everything in one spot. Now come on over here. I've got some other heat-loving greens growing here in Little Shorty. Gotta love Little Shorty, a nice compact way to grow too. This is the New Zealand spinach, and this is from my heat-tolerant green seed collection, as are some of the other vegetables. You can see it has kind of a spinach-looking appearance, and it's kind of a trailing plant. Absolutely loves the heat, as opposed to spinach, which bolts very, very quickly in the heat. This plant here, you guys, is so hardy. I've literally had it growing in the same spot for about 3 to 4 years here in Southern California. I trim it back about 2 to 3 times a year. I just cut this back about a month ago, and it's already growing really strong. So with New Zealand spinach, it is more of a trailing plant. So it will kind of trail over the raised bed, or if you want to, you can kind of direct it up a trellis like I have here, and kind of let it shade some of your other plants that might need some shade underneath. Now, another one of my heat-loving greens is Endive. I absolutely love Endive, and it's so easy to grow. And it's one of those really firm textured greens that holds up really well to salads and lasts forever in the heat. Now here I've got some growing that's getting a little bit crowded out by my squash and my arugula, and you can see how the leaves are super frilly and absolutely beautiful. So what I'm going to do is plant some more over here by my kale. Now the good thing about a lot of these greens too is if you don't have a super sunny spot, you can still grow them. So this spot over here, I've got some of the lacinato kale planted, and it really only gets maybe 3 to 4 hours of sunlight a day. So you know what? I'm going to grow some shade-tolerant, heat-loving greens here. And Endive is so easy just to sprinkle down some seeds, super quick and easy to direct seed. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. Just sprinkle these seeds down. You don't have to worry about spacing or think too much about it. I mean, why make things any more difficult than we need to, right? And then just sprinkle some soil right over the top. So they're going to get watered here by my Mr. Landscaper micro sprayers. And I guarantee it, I'll be harvesting Endive probably by mid-July. Next category that you've got to plant in June that are so easy to direct seed our herbs. Now, a lot of herbs will grow very well in drought tolerant or in shade. And my very favorite is basil. So down here, we've got a couple different varieties of basil. And I always suggest planting different varieties so you have a different profile of flavor in your foods. This is one of my absolute favorites. It's called Prospera compact basil. It's a smaller, more compact plant, and I have found it over the years to be so productive, last well through the summer heat. It's a very easy vegetable, or very easy herb to direct sow now in June. Now here I've got a gorgeous purple basil growing, and this is such a beautiful plant. So not only does it add a lot of beauty to your herb garden, but it also is super flavorful, and basil is so easy to plant from seed. The Prospera compact basil from my herb seed collection is actually a pelleted seed. So it's super easy just to pick these seeds up. I mean, it is definitely not too late to direct plant basil seeds. Just pop them in every couple of inches here in an empty spot in your garden bed, kind of poke them down into the soil or just very lightly cover them with soil, water them in, and in warm temperatures, your basil is going to pop up within about a week or so. And you can actually start harvesting basil, is the great thing about it, when it's only 2 to 3 inches tall. So the more you harvest herbs, the more they grow. So you want to harvest them at least once a week just by pinching off the top set of leaves, and throw this in one of your favorite recipes, and it will start to grow new leaves out from where you cut. So you definitely always want to have plenty of basil in your garden. A couple other of my favorite varieties of basil. One that's super hardy is called Thai basil. I have that down in my Smart Pots raised beds. It's kind of a licoricey type of flavor, and it lasts through summer heat and even into colder temperatures in the fall. I've even had a couple plants over winter here in Southern California. So for your Southern climate gardeners, it's a really good long growing basil. Another one of my favorites from my herb seed collection is called culinary basil, which if you love to cook, you've got to get this planted. It's got several different varieties of basil: Italian basil, Greek basil, lemon basil. So definitely a good, strong grower in the garden too. Another herb I never want to be without in my summer garden are chives. So if you're just getting started, plant some chives from seed. These are onion chives, and they're starting to flower. But don't let that worry you. The flowers actually will dry and then have chive seeds in them. Once they're totally dry, these pods will break open and you'll see seeds in them. And then you can just harvest the tops of the chives, cut the flowers off for brand new growth. But chives are super easy to divide. So if you have any friends that are growing chives, all you need to do is dig up a clump of chives, pop them throughout your raised beds, on the edges of your raised beds, and they'll grow beautifully for you all summer. So chives are actually a perennial, so you can grow them from year to year without replanting. But if you don't have seeds started yet, super easy to plant. I like to plant them as kind of garden bed edgers. So you can just sprinkle your seeds along the edges of your garden bed. They're so pretty. The bees love the flowers. You can just very lightly cover the seeds up. They grow well in the shade, well in the sun, and they're probably the herb that I use the most. So super easy just to snip the tops for regrowth, and then snip these into your scrambled egg dishes, your salads, your recipes. They are such a delicious herb, and definitely one you want to plant here in June. Another delicious herb that you've got to plant now in June is fennel. Now, fennel is not quite as common of an herb as basil and chives, but it is a must grow. Here I've got some fennel actually growing in one of my Smart Pots hanging baskets, and you can see this bulb here. It's absolutely delicious when you harvest it before it flowers and kind of shave it or slice it thinly to put in salads or in garden fresh pizza. It's absolutely delicious. Now, once you harvest the bulb, it won't grow back. So it is a one and done plant, but very easy to grow from seed. And it's in the same family as dill. You can see these leaves here look very similar to dill leaves, and the flowers look almost exactly like dill flowers right up here. Now it has a kind of an anise, kind of licoricey type flavor. So I wouldn't necessarily use the flowers for dill pickles, but I'm telling you guys, let some of your fennel plants flower. The bees absolutely love them. So it's a great thing to plant right next to some of your other vegetables that you want to bring the bees in to pollinate. And it just has such a beautiful look in the garden. Now this fennel plant has literally lasted me a couple of years. I keep chopping it back. I've transplanted it several times, and it just keeps growing. So let me show you what the seeds look like here. They're a little bit of a larger seed, but very easy to direct sow. fact, I'm just going to pop some fennel seeds right in down here, because I think it would be a really beautiful plant to have growing here really close to my kitchen. And I do love planting herbs close to my kitchen for easy access. And what I found is that when they're close to my kitchen's just right here, our back door is just right there, I'm much more likely to pop out here in the garden and pick some to use in my recipes. So just make it easy on yourself. Here we go. Got some fennel planted. It's that easy. Along with these easy to grow vegetables and herbs, you've got to get some flowers started for some pollinator party starters. Now this salvia is actually buzzing with bees, and pollinators are super important to bring into your garden to pollinate the vegetables. Now salvia is not an easy one to direct seed, so I don't recommend actually planting that from seed, but grab a transplant from the garden center if you're interested in that. But some very easy flowers to direct seed now in June, and guarantee it's not too late, are zinnias and sunflowers. I've got a ton of zinnias planted down here of every different color and size, and they are one of the easiest flowers to direct seed in June. And you just poke seeds or sprinkle seeds onto the surface of the soil, cover them with soil, and you are good to go. You'll have beautiful zinnias blooming in about 6 to 8 weeks. So I've got a nice wide swath of zinnias growing here. But another one of my favorites are sunflowers. And a lot of my sunflowers actually reseed from year to year. Here we've got a gorgeous one that's coming up that reseeded from last year. This is a giant sunflower that's going to be producing probably a 10-foot sunflower, believe it or not. And I've got lots of sunflowers planted here against my fence to bring in the pollinators. So sunflowers, of course, very easy to plant from seed as well. They absolutely love the sun and actually kind of turn their heads toward the sun as the sun is moving through the sky during the day. So just pop a few seeds into the soil. You're going to have some gorgeous sunflowers coming up soon and then blooming into July and August. They're very long bloomers. You can actually deadhead or cut off the spent flowers for longer season blooms to keep the pollinators absolutely coming into your garden all season long. And the butterflies love the zinnias as well. So I guarantee it, you can't go wrong with easy to plant pollinator party starters like zinnias and sunflowers. Another beautiful warm season flower to plant, the absolute no-brainer, are wildflowers. Now, if you're feeling behind, you got to get some wildflowers planted. They're so easy because literally all you have to do is put some in your hand and just sprinkle them over a nice sunny area where you like them to grow, which is exactly what I did a couple of years ago for all the flowers I have growing here. It's a good mix here in my warm weather flower seed collection of perennials and annuals. So you do get some that grow back every single year. And it just keeps the bees coming in like crazy, which is exactly what you want right here near my squash. Another flower that really brings in the pollinators is borage. Borage is an edible flower, as are actually all the other flowers I've mentioned. Now, a good way to plant borage is right next to your heavy hitter vegetables like melons. And I forgot to mention that in the earlier section, so I'll talk about that in just a moment. But here we have the borage flower. It kind of smells like cucumber. It's a little bit of a prickly leaf, but wow, the flowers are absolutely gorgeous. Here I have a transplant that's just starting to bloom. It will open up with beautiful purple flowers, which the pollinators absolutely love. It grows very easily from seed and actually often reseeds from year to year. So I always say you plant borage once and you're going to be able to grow it forever because it drops its seeds everywhere. So I'm just going to poke a few more seeds down here in the soil right next to my melons. It's also a good idea to plant next to squash and cucumbers that might have a hard time getting pollination. And they pop up so quick and it will grow super, super quickly. Now, as I mentioned, I forgot to put melons in the June heavy hitter section, but it's definitely not too late to get melons started. If you have a long growing season, you can actually plant your full-size melons right now. And a lot of times when you direct seed them right next to a trellis, they'll catch up to your transplants. So here I actually have, I think it's a golden Jubilee melon growing up over my 7-foot arch. If you have a short growing season, I recommend planting a smaller, more compact variety like the sugar baby. Now come on over here and I'll show you how my sugar babies are doing. You do want to plant melons in full sun. And this section gets about maybe 6 to 7 hours of sun in the summertime. So they're kind of growing a little bit slowly. And I'm actually kind of changing my strategy just a little bit for my sugar babies growing them in containers on a trellis over here. And I think I do need to push these smart pots, they're a 15-gallon, up just a little bit. They're on rollers, so they get just a little bit more sun. I've got an easy DIY A-frame trellis. This is in my book on raised bed gardening on how to build it. And I'm actually gonna pop in some more of the sugar baby seeds because I would like some seeds that might really get off to a strong start. I planted the transplants when it was still a little bit cold outside, so the seeds might have gotten a little bit stunted. These are just so easy to pop in your garden beds. Again, you don't have to worry about being too late. I mean, come on now. It's not a race. It's all about just enjoying the time out in your garden, isn't it? So I'll pop a few more seeds into this 15-gallon smart pot. And do make sure you've got a good trellis for your melons. The sugar babies are a nice compact size. I'm going to say about 5 to 7 pounds. And we really like them because you can eat them all in one sitting and then nothing goes to waste. Last flower here for our pollinator party starters are cosmos. The pollinators absolutely love them and they're so easy to grow. So here we got some of the red cosmos. Cosmos are also an edible flower, although they have a slightly bitter, grassy taste. Probably best used for garnishes or just to bring the pollinators in. But you do want to deadhead your cosmos in order to keep them blooming. They have a very long bloom time, so just pinch them off. They love hot weather, take hot weather without a problem, and are so easy to plant from seed. So I'm just going to pop some here in my little shorty. Now the seeds are very unusual looking. Let me show you these. And you can also let the flowers dry and then harvest your own seeds for next year, but they often reseed themselves from year to year. They're kind of a longish shaped seed. So you just kind of sprinkle them along here, your garden bed. All these seeds are just so easy to direct seed. They're pretty much no-brainers. And then just cover them up with soil, water them in, and you are done with your cosmos. So easy. So if you're feeling like you're a little bit behind for June, remember it's not too late. Don't feel like you have to get all these planted. Just pick 5 to 7 of your favorites and get out in the garden and do your thing. As always, I'll be reading the comments. Thanks for watching. See you next time in the garden.